All righty, guys and gals. Good morning. Little late notice show, but figured while we've got the chance to have the special Mr. Rick Rabenold on board with us for a morning Force Recon chat, I figured, hey, well, let's go ahead and get some information while we can get it. So today we're gonna do something a little bit different as opposed to Mr. Rick starting off talking about himself the whole time. We're going to do a little bit a special talk because again, guys, y'all have asked me what I read, and I go in between SOG and Force Recon, and this happens to be Doc Bruce Norton's book, who will be coming on probably next week or the week after, and he's wrote the entire history of Stingray, the patrol techniques for Force Recon, and there's a great chapter in the ending of the book, chapter 23, known as the Battle for Hill 510. And it goes into Stingray missions, keyhole where we'll get into that, trying to get not seen, get nothing but intel. Stingray was a little more, let's inflict some punishment if we can see large groups of MVA while trying to do some recon. And we get into 1970, which Mr. Rick was in country. He was in country a lot, as we know. And this is about the time First Force is at Danang, and they are starting to need radio relay stations put up because they're operating near Hill 510 around Thong Duck, where an A camp was. And groups are setting up 292 radio sites and radio positions. So we're going to be covering a little bit of an April 1970 mission of Daniel P. Williams, a former recon platoon sergeant from 3rd Force Company, who took his team Misty Cloud out on patrol into the Thung Duck area. And chaos ensued, to say the least. And Mr. Rick was around and actually in the field around this point in time. So Mr. Rick's going to get into Hill 510 and the battle and the significance for what was going on around that area. So, Mr. Rick, the floor is yours, sir.
Morning, bud. Yeah, that time period is like the first week of April that we went up there. And Hill 510 had once upon a time been a fire base. And part of it was clear, so there was a little landing zone for us. But we had to go in and establish, I'm going to call it a platoon patrol base. Since 510 was a pretty steep mountain, to go off of it, you would have to go kind of southwest toward another hill that we used for an OP, Hill 487. But going, say, primarily to the north, due west and due east, very, very good observation. So the mission itself was to set up the platoon patrol base and observe. Now, the hill itself, we sat above the Song Kai River. That was flowing from the southwest. It would flow all the way around past us, going to the east, over towards the Arizona territory. Now, we were in the Thong Duck area, and if those familiar with the different map sheets, we were on the Thong Duck map sheet. And that's a totally different area down there.
Okay.
But that was another OP that we and the battalion shared. And you're looking down at Elephant, the Garden of Eden, and you're towards Elephant Valley.
Okay. Sorry about
that. But yeah, our location was in Thong Duck, and we would look down at the Song Kai, and almost directly in front of us, there was a subsidiary, the Song, I want to call it Dabong, Buong, and it flowed into the Song Kai. So you had a joint there, and if you continued on the Song Kai, you would go down to where the Song Khan flowed into the Song Kai, and that's where the A camp was, A109. That was about, I want to say, as the crow flies, 7 to 8 clicks from our hill. And on our side of the river is the tennis courts that people talk about. So if you kept going, the river turned into the Song Vuzhou. And we were observing the river, see what kind of traffic, what can we see with enemy movement. And it turned out to be a very, very exciting and profitable 5 to 7 days that we were out there. And the people that we took up there to the northwest, probably 12, 15 clicks without counting, maybe 20, is where about 14 days before that we got in an ambush and Sergeant Ayers was killed. And that would have been in northwest Thong Duc. So there were to the northwest and the west, we knew there were a lot of base camps. Going to our north and to the northeast, particularly above the A camp, thousands of bad guys. And above the A camp was the slope on the southern side of what we call Charlie Ridge. So giving you that point, that kind of lays out what we were looking at going primarily to the north. Our team comprised of Danny Williams was assigned to Team Misty Cloud. And he had probably looked like about nine team members. And then my team, which had been Abe Lincoln, I was now Quizmaster. And I had 6 guys. And then there was communicators up there to run the 2902, that kind of stuff. And we were all up on the hill. We started establishing little bunkers and knocking trees down, and all the time setting up watch down on the river. And as a perimeter and whole. So what evolved is right at the point where the rivers met, where the Bong and the Song Kai met, on the east part of that point, we started observing, and we figured out, and we could see gardens, and then we started finding and locating bunkers, and we could get some artillery in at that point. The A camp had 105s that were close enough and in range. They also over there had sets of mortars, so they had some good firepower there. I think the Arvins were the ones that actually ran the artillery, but we could use that. And throughout the week, we continually saw bad guys. They would come out and they would tend their gardens, We would call an airstrike, and they'd come running out and try and protect their food source. And after a couple of days, we were in their shorts, and it was like hitting a hornet's nest down there. And they had a set of mortars themselves, so they tried to mortar us, and they weren't too accurate at that point. We weren't too concerned. They probed the hill, they came around it, but there was only one good way to get at us, and that would have been they would have had to come across the open LZ that we used. And on the far side of that, we, booby trapped, claymore, and all around us. So anytime we thought anything was trying to probe around us, you threw grenades.
With I had one question. I hate to interrupt your flow. Doc was mentioning Danny's team. They believed that spurred my moment when you were talking about them protecting gardens, because he mentions that in the book. But I thought Doc also referenced that he heard from either Danny or some kind of information from someone that they also were had ammunition there and were doing all they could, like NVA, VC, whatever, were laying on top of charges, mortar rounds and all of that to protect them from you guys blowing up the rest of your ammunition caches and such that they had.
Yeah, as every day we would whack them, and they would, they had ammunition, and we did hit some of it because we were getting secondary explosions. So you knew you were doing multiple damage to them. So they were trying to do that, trying to protect it. We continued to hit it. They tried going across the bong to get to the other side of the river, and they would come down the river, and they would use kind of a long looking, I think they called it a pirogue, something like Pirouge, and they would try and transport materials. They would try and transport men, but we had gotten a direct hit on a boat. So they, without getting to talk to those guys, they were at their wits' end, because we were towering above them and could see everything they were doing, and we just continued with the artillery and the airstrikes, and as we were doing things, gunships. There were actually a couple of gunships that were in the area, and asked could they get in on it, and they actually tracked right down the river to where the bad guys might have been able to hear them, but they couldn't see where they were coming from, and they just arrived at that point and just smoked the area, and we just continued and destroyed their gardens. We hit some of the bunkers. We don't, it would have took, grunts, a grunt company to go down there and really destroy it totally. And not sure why, that never occurred. But the damage we did pretty much destroyed, their food source, and drove off the bad guys that were there. But there were so many people in the Thong Duck area that if you went further to the north and the map sheet above Thong Duck is the other one that I sent to you, Bach Ma. And as you get up towards the top, on the other side of Charlie Ridge, you have Happy Valley, and a little further north you have Bana, and then you get into your Bach Ma. But coming from the west is what we call the Yellow Brick Road, which was the ingress into our areas going towards Danang, off of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So lots and lots of bad guys came, and like I said, from Charlie Ridge, there were a lot of base camps, and they actually laid siege to the A camp. I want to say it was they were under siege for about 3 months. And talking with John, I'm not sure how many thousand that were in the area and pursuing the camp. But we also had communicators. We had communicators over there. We had a 2-man radio team there. Recon Battalion had a 2-man team there. And one of our guys, our bunker took a hit, and one of our guys, Ron Hugel, he got tossed, and he still feels the residual effect of that today.
Oh.
But
I've recently linked up with a Mike Force man who you actually know, and I think it may be Mr. Mark, not Mark Stinson. It's maybe John. I can't remember, but you know him because he comments on Mr. John's, because they actually met up because he was with the Mike Force group. We'll get these maps right. I just wanted to bring that up because I had it that you sent me. But he remembers when they were moved in to help push off the NVA that had been sieging John's camp. And he was was he still a lieutenant at that time running the camp, or was he a young captain already?
John?
Yes, sir.
He was the XO. As far as I meant, he was a lieutenant.
Okay. But from what I've heard, he was pretty much running the show. And this man I hooked up with said that when they got there were literal thousands of bodies in and around from where artillery out of the base got people to where the NVA had charged the base and they had fought them off. And then when they got there, they got behind an NVA unit that was trying to retreat, and the Mike Force absolutely obliterated them, and said in his entire tour with the Mike Force, that is the most amount of dead bodies that he's ever seen in one place in his entire life.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing because the 8 camp didn't have a lot of people.
No. And
what we were doing pretty much took pressure off to their west. And with the river, with the Song Kai, that kept them from the bad guys coming from the southern part. And but on the southern side, if there were bad guys, they could actually mortar across to the A camp from the tennis courts. And the tennis courts were to our east and to A camp south. And I ran out there from early '67, and there were base camps all through there. And I know John, their guys had run patrols on that side in the tennis court area. But
here's overlooking the camp. This is on Mr. John's page right here, to where they had found where you can see where the trees have been bursted from 122s coming back. But there is a great list of photos that I'm trying to find that there's a good one right there. And I can't remember what river this is that y'all are at.
It's well, the big river is the Song Kai,
Okay, that was it.
and then the Song Khan is a tributary that fed it, and then down by us was the Bong, or however the Vietnamese pronounce it, Bong, Bong, and then it all flowed into the Vu Zhou that continued from Thong Duc over to the Arizona territory.
That's and here we see Mr. John saying to you, NVA had loaded the mountaintop with 12.7 AA guns, protected by 2 rings of bunkers. We knocked out the guns, but could not hold that mountain. He had more men than I, and assaulted into the bunkers with Chief Hennessy, light weapons sergeant, full-blooded Sioux Indian, clearing them out left and right. But he held the bunkers more than I did. I mean, from the sound on it, that A109 battle was absolute hell on earth. And for Mr. John, a young XO lieutenant, doing what he did is just an absolute testament to his skill. Were there any Marines in camp that day with them, the radio men, or
just the radio guys?
Oh my God! Oh wow! Did they survive? Were they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't recall which guys were the timing.
Mm-hmm.
I know Hewell and Clark were there, and then there were 2 before them that were, I think, knee deep into the siege. But I think I told you well, I'm pretty sure I told you that I had not known that John was at that A camp, and when we got ambushed and Sergeant Ayers was killed, we got spy rigged out, and we actually landed in the A camp in March the 19th. And it just so happened that John was the XO, and it was like, wow, he's the XO, and we went to high school and graduated together, which was amazing. And
the small world of Vietnam veterans and special forces / Marine Recon. It's just a small world.
Yes. And, if you get the opportunity, John would be outstanding to have, for his knowledge at the A camp, but, in his career as, in special forces.
Went on to fly as well.
Yes, he did. Very, very interesting and great career. Great career.
Absolutely. And I keep trying. I've learned early on, if you get a no early on, kind of back off a bit. And I've gotten I'll think about it. So I'm trying to let him think it over. And he doesn't have to come on here, but I would love to at least get to hear a little bit of his story.
Yeah, now that's a good picture there. And it's actually a set of 3.
Mm-hmm. And I've got the other 2 I'll get up as well.
That's the LZ on 510.
Wow.
And
this is a landing, correct? A spy landing?
Yeah. What had happened is that team is led by Sergeant Christopher Jumbo. And Jumbo took his team and walked down off of 510, going to the southwest to Hill 487. And they got in a big firefight. So they got spy rigged out. And we were up on the hill, my team, Quizmaster, and right in the center was, you see a guy in a T-shirt. Well, there's Jumbo. He was the team leader on that one. And that was his second tour also. He was with the 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. And
The Walking Dead, weren't they?
Yeah, on his first tour in 66 and 7. Yeah, on the left there with the air panel, that's Sergeant Ledford, who he ended up lieutenant colonel and also became a flyer.
Wow, looks like I wonder. Well, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. What size teams was Mr. Christopher running?
That was 7.
Woo! Wow. Okay. And I believe I've got one more of them actually in the air. Let me check this because I know you sent me the whole set. That's them on the ground. I'll get the other one. That's them when you were talking about them running right there. And look at the size of the packs on these guys. That's crazy. Crazy. Whew. Yep. Give me a second, and you can go ahead, and I'll bring up the last one. Got so many dadgum photos here. That's Jim. That's Sandhurst coming in right here. I don't know if this is. I don't have the third one available, but I do have this one. They can kind of get the point across of what it looks like to be up in the air.
Yeah. I would, if I ever flew that again and on a spy rig, I would like to do that over the Grand Canyon.
Oh, wow. What did you that brings up a good question, just because we're talking extract rigs, and y'all were using the CH-46s and such as that. Two questions will come of this. First off, Jason was curious how many, and I was wondering as well, how many extract forms did you use? Did you get to use the Spire, McGuire, the Stabo, and all of that, or?
Yeah, I mean, the Stabo really evolved into the Spy.
Mm-hmm.
I never used McGuire. We did repelling.
Mm-hmm.
And 68, 69, you were doing the ladder, the aluminum ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be pretty much, the repelling, the ladder, the evolution into the Stabo Spy.
Did you? I hear from a lot of guys. A lot of guys like the Stabo and SOG, but that they were doing different extracts. And some guys actually like the ladder as well. What was your? I guess that's a hard word to use. What was your favorite way of getting out? Getting out is the best way. Getting out doesn't matter. But what would you prefer? What did you find the easiest of use?
Well, the favorite would be for a 46 to land with the tailgate on the ground, and you didn't have to jump, crawl, get pulled in, and you could just run in, and hopefully nobody was shooting at you. But if you're in a firefight, you're on the run, whatever it could be, the Spy over, instead of the ladder type, the Spy, it could come down through the canopy, and you can get hooked up and pulled up through there. Downside is you do get bounced around. You can get smacked into trees, and as a team leader, you make sure everybody's on, so you're bottom man. And bottom man typically, I got bounced pretty good as a bottom man. And getting out is great because, on a spy rig, you're hooked, and you do have your hands somewhat free with your weapon, and you could throw grenades down. You just want to make sure you're not that close to the ground so you can defend yourself as you're doing it. There are some pluses, and before the advent of that stuff, like on my first tour, we didn't have any of that. So if you had to get out of canopy somehow and evade and get to an LZ, and hope support was there so that they can get to the ground and get you out. So,
you guys were also, and I find it pretty crazy. We hear of SOG doing random mix-ins, but you guys did it a lot more. Y'all would do walk-in, blend-in patrols, but I've also heard the term, and I don't know if we've ever spoken about it with you, but rough ride inserts
On a truck.
Yes, sir. Well, what was that? Did you happen to partake in any of those?
Not really. I didn't. And we used to have to take a truck when I first got back in. No, well, we were at Hill 34, and that's what's in the big Hill 34 was the beginning of the video I sent you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then we moved to Camp Adner. Camp Adner was right down the road from the A camp, the Green Beret camp there at Marble Mountain. So you had Marble Mountain, and as you come back, you have the Green Beret camp, you have Mag 16, and we were on the other side of the road with a CB. We were in a CB compound, and it had us, but we had no LZ, so we had to take trucks to get over there. But we did not typically take a truck as an insert. I mean, I've had to walk out and get met by grunts on a 6x to get extracted. And, we've been out in the monsoons for so long and nothing could fly. And, I had bad immersion foot after that, walking out on that one. And then they took us to, I want to say it was, I forget which combat base it was. But I remember the doctor looking at my feet and going, said, I need to take a picture of these for medical science. And it's like, yeah, right. Okay. So, but another insert was on Amtrak's.
Oh.
And that would have been up in the Elephant Valley, crossing that, the Songbong, I think, that crossing that river. But yeah, that one took trucks out to the river and then hooked up with the Amtrak's that took you across, and then got off and ran a patrol on the other side of the river, the north side, and ran a patrol. So that would, that's a truck and an Amtrak and a walk. So,
wow, that's pretty interesting. When I first started seeing the term Rough Rider, I was very eager to learn what in the heck was going on with that.
Another one would be, rubber boats.
That's it. Yes, I made a note to ask you about that. Could you kind of explain a little bit? Because again, everyone equates the SEALs with everything water, but Force Recon and Special Forces were doing water stuff, and especially Force Recon, that they were doing a lot of water stuff. What was going on with the rubber boat missions?
Well, we can go back to the beginning. And with rubber boat training, and if you had the opportunity to start with force stateside and get totally trained, you were jump, you were scuba, you were a pathfinder. We practiced rubber boats. I mean, we used to do rubber boats with submarines. And a submarine, we'd go out, put the rubber boat on the deck, actually 3 of them tied on it with rope, and the sub would go down, and then our 3 boats would be out there just paddling around practicing. And then we had to practice getting back onto the sub. So 2 boats would be on one side of the rope, one on the other. The sub would slowly come up and catch the rope, and the premise is that the three rubber boats would come right behind and be on their deck. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes you went for a swim, but we practiced that stuff. And other stuff with submarines and guys that went to New London. You did blow and go, where you went down, whatever, 50, 75 feet. You went out the chamber in the submarine, and you had that one breath, and you just blew out until you got to the top of the water. And that's the indoctrination of some of this stuff. But in Vietnam, when we went, we ran patrols. But when we came back out of the bush, we also took care of bridges. We had to go do bridge checks and dive the bridges. We had to, you'd work with grunts. Grunts would be, sweeping and pushing bad guys toward the river. And we would dive the river. And there'd be, little caves, air pockets. Bad guys would stage stuff. And, we would dive the rivers looking for stuff. And a lot of things, you might find old mortar rounds and stuff that, you don't really want to mess with them because you don't know what's going to happen. They've been in the water. Diving the rivers were dangerous, murky, hard to see. You couldn't see very far in front of your face. And it's very easy to get tangled up in roots and growth along the banks.
Weren't in the rivers of Vietnam? Didn't they have a species of alligator as well?
I heard of them down south.
Okay.
I didn't encounter them, okay. But I did hear that kind of stuff down south. If they were up by us, they were hiding.
Yeah.
But who knew?
We've heard of some. Well, you've mentioned a few times, and some other guys about during Tet. Captain, gosh, I'm gonna forget, Fred Vogel and his group. Having to fight off and get the sappers off the bridges during Tet, where they're attempting to, completely blow all the bridges to where more Marines and more forces can't get in to help. And it's interesting to read. It's not just Marines out there doing grunt work and recon work. I mean, they're diving, they're protecting bridges. You've got some other guys a part of PRU, Phoenix. I mean, the Marine Corps was doing a lot of stuff in Vietnam. It's just a shame they didn't get the blank check that the Army did with MACV-SOG, because a lot of good would have come out of that. But with y'all made do with what y'all had. That's what I've always respected about the Marine Corps.
Yeah, we did probably something of everything. I mean, we were doing land, air, sea, whatever it took. And, the SOG guys, I mean, same. They were, the folks were, trained. They were trained. A lot of the guys were trained in pacifist training and trying to upgrade and deal with the villagers. Where us per se, we did not. I didn't do that. I mean,
they were hearts and minds, as opposed to y'all killing and gaining recon. The Green Beret motto, is capture hearts and minds and to free the oppressed. Marine Corps is that's not the.
And they pursued that, and it's just that when they got into running the borders or crossing the borders, every day was a shit sandwich. I mean, on a good day is one where you can only feel them and you don't see them, and you don't have to encounter them. But the problem is 90% of the time when you would encounter bad guys in the bush, you're outnumbered. But the teams that we had, I mean, those few guys packed a lot of power, and depending where you were, your support would rain hell down on the bad guys, and they would think twice sometimes of attacking.
Could you go into that? That's one thing that just is so interesting with Force Recon is y'all did get out there pretty deep to where y'all didn't have the guns, but I think y'all utilized artillery and air support as better or better than anyone else during Vietnam and maybe up to now. I mean, first and third were absolutely lethal when in artillery range, spotting large numbers of MBA.
Yeah, I mean, the artillery itself, depending, where we went, 105s, 155s, 8-inch guns, and 175s had a pretty good range, but I didn't want that shit firing near me. I mean, that's all right if I was on a hill and did an OP and was going to whack somebody, but the hole they blew and the inaccuracy, and a lot of times we would get out past the artillery fan, and you have to rely on, can we get any fixed wing? And the fixed wing, took time to get there, to scramble, and then their station time wasn't very long. And
you're talking about you're getting A6 intruders, you're getting fast movers from the Navy and the Marine Corps Air.
It's not like some of the old ones that could stay on station.
Like the A1Es,
the A1s,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they would get in, they would hit, and a lot of times that's what would drive the bad guys to cover, so that we could either run for an LZ or a chopper would come in, and and the chopper packages, we always had a pair of either 46s, or when they were out of service, we had 34s, which I think the Vietnamese call them king bees. But
now, did that ever change during? Because guys, if y'all are new here, Mr. Rick was in 67, 70. I'm not sure if he left in 70 at the end or maybe stayed till 71. I always forget because of so much time. But did y'all ever there towards the end start getting some Army slicks or gunships working with y'all, or was it strictly 46s and the like the remainder of the time?
Yeah, it was rare that we got slicks.
Okay.
Primarily, we ran the 46s, but in 67, there was issues with them. They were getting cracked rotors, stress fractures. I'm not sure what all the issues were, but there were some that exploded in midair. But they were taken out of service. So then we had to use the 34s, and they refurbed and corrected the problems with the 46s, and we eventually got them back. But
46 in the back there.
That's how one of our corpsmen in 70, and he was a 69-70. That's Doc Andrews.
Oh wow, I've heard that name. I've heard you mention his name before.
Doc Andrews, if you read Bill Peters' book.
Yes, sir.
where they did a prisoner snatch and the bad guy
Quezon?
bit the corpsman's thumb.
Oh, that's Doc.
That's Doc Andrews.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Nice to
big
put a
time.
name to the face.
He died of Parkinson's a couple of years back.
Oh Lord. Hate to
Great
hear
guy,
that.
great guy.
Question real quick as we're talking here. That's a great shot of him, a send home photo. Does he have his barrel taped, or is that just what it looking weird in the diluted photo?
You always taped over the tip of your barrel.
Okay, always.
Always.
Would y'all wait till would y'all test fire, tape it, and then just let it go until the first firefight and blow the tape loose?
Yeah, you always to keep debris, rain, whatever, to get down there. And I can't tell. It looks like you can see the holes in the stock there and there. Typically, I taped up a lot of that stuff, but always taped to keep keep it free. You didn't want crud getting in there, or that kind of stuff.
We've had a few questions about, and some other gentlemen mentioned there as it's not although this will come up on the questions here because we're at 45 minutes and we'll start taking questions here in a few minutes. Even though I've already been asking you questions. What was the Force Recon MO for test firing a weapon for a mission? Was this done the night before and everything's good to go through a half mag or so, or if you got a belt weapon, go through 20-30 rounds and put it up for the night, tape it? Or would y'all, as you're getting ready to go, fire it off before you got up to the helipad, then tape it up and be ready to go? Or
it depended on what time you were getting inserted. I mean, sometimes a team may be going out first light, and you test fire the day before, tape it, make sure everything is fine, and then you're good to go. Sometimes you're leaving in the afternoon or late afternoon to where you'll test fire, tape it, and then get inserted late afternoon, and then you're just doing a short jaunt from your LZ and then looking for a harbor site. So a lot of things is depending on timing.
I was curious about that because I've heard from different branches and different guys in those said branches having two totally different ways of doing it, and but that kind of clears it up right there. I was interested in those two things very much. So,
I mean, particularly with the 16s in '67, we got them in like March, and a lot of us, we still kept 14s with them.
Yeah.
And
Mr. Tommy said he had to fight to keep his when he was for the Navy Cross mission. Mr. Tommy.
Tommy, yeah.
He said he literally had to fight when he moved down and ran that mission. They were like, "Give us that. You got to get a 16 or a Car 15 now." He's like, "No, I'm sticking with this. I've had this, and you're not prying it from my hands."
Yeah, I mean, I took a 14 with me, and I had a 14, and then in February, March, we were getting 16s, and that's when we also got to test the stoner.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I kept the 14, and then when I came back again in 70, one of the pictures you can see it in there. I had a 14 again and a 16, and depending where I was going and what I thought, I would take whichever. We were not fortunate to get Car 15s. We had like one or two. I mean, very rare.
I mean, I think, God, was it Mr. Bill and maybe Andy? I think those are one of the only two, and I haven't spoken to a lot of y'all, but a good bit of y'all. I think those are the only ones that I can think of that have said they either saw or actually had for their primary weapon. It was a CAR 15. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, with me, Sergeant Ayers had one.
Oh, okay, okay.
And Ayers ran with Bill Peters quite a bit. But
There's Mother right there.
yeah, I think Bill. Yeah, there he is. That's about an hour or two before we got ambushed.
Oh,
That was up in northwest Thong Duc.
Oh, in Thong Duc, 19 March 1970 at 10:40 hours, Abe Lincoln lost Daryl Mother Ayers in an ambush.
Yeah,
Semper Fi, Mother Semper Fi.
he was one of the more popular people. Very, very popular. Uh, Cared about people. A good man, and
I,
and that was 1970, and he wanted to extend again, and being late March, and the first force that actually was standing down in August, and our command may have already had an idea that being snuffies, we didn't know. We just run.
mm-hmm.
But he couldn't extend again, and but he actually, we talked about the RIP program when new guys get in and guys went through the indoctrination, and he actually went through it with the Recon Battalion in 1966.
God.
And then went off and did other things, and then he came back and got in, in 69 he hooked up with Bill Peters and him.
That is and I found this is a great photo because I believe we were talking about Admiral McCain not too long ago. I found a great photo of you, Mr. Bart Russell, that you had. But did you were you around at this point when he came around First Recon? Did any of the Force guys get to see him or?
Yeah, I went there then that day.
Ah, okay. From all I've heard, he sounds like a good man considering he could have called off the Sante raid and all of the stuff going on with SOG and you guys that may have endangered his son. I got to respect him for not doing special treatment and, saying, no, you're not going to, do stuff that could help the war that may get my son killed. And I got to say, for John to have the way to, they were going to let him out, and he's like, no, I'm not going to leave until everybody can get out. So
Yeah.
I got to give him respect for that. Although I've heard from some of the Marines on some of the boats that John was a little careless on the boats with the airplanes and the bombs on the boats.
Yeah, here, going to the vet center, I met the people that I didn't know at that time, and one of the guys, Navy Cross winner, and a friend of his that was helping him a lot with his health issues, was Navy, and there's Doc Connor, Andy, and me.
All of y'all been on our favorite 3 Force Recon men.
Yeah, but this fellow I'm talking about, he was on the ship with that the McCain started that fire.
Forrestal, was it the Forrestal fire?
Yeah, the Forrestal.
Yeah.
Yes, and he still, he has the scars and the burn marks.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
But
It got bad. There's some footage, not of course of the whole thing, but some of the aftermath, and it looked like it was a bad one.
Yeah,
a real bad one. Yeah. All right. We've hit the hour mark, and we've decided we're probably only going to go about hour 15, and let some more interest build up and get some more questions. We've got questions right here going, and I'm about to be digging up. Luckily, Jason Holmes saved the day and key linked me to our Force Recon questions and SOG questions that I'm going to be going through. But for the viewers that are actually viewing and participating, we'll do their questions first. Jason Holmes, Jason, by the way, thank you for all you do, and thank you for what you did to help me out this morning. Was 5 to 7 days about the average length for a Force Recon mission? What is the shortest amount of time you spent on the ground for a mission, and what was your longest mission? Good question.
You may go out on an OP, okay. Which, it could be a radio relay / OP, and that was typical a week. Normal patrols would be 4 to 5 days. With the monsoon, it could be 3, 4, 5 days tacked onto that because you can't get out. The shortest, one story that that'll be like in 8 minutes. It was 8 minutes from hitting the ground and to get, and actually that was Norman's last patrol when he was my platoon sergeant.
Wow.
And
Gunny Jennings, no.
Yeah, Gunny Jennings, Norman Jennings. But
8 minutes. Wow.
That patrol, it brought up the bullshit about prepping LZs before you go in. And this one was worse than normal because they prepped it the night before.
Oh, God.
So any bad guys in the area knew something was up, and
they'll be here.
There was a booby trap 250-pound mine there. And
Jesus Christ.
One guy was critical. About 4 others were wounded. But yeah, 8 minutes. It was scurry in and scurry out, but
boy, that 250-pounder could have got all of y'all and the aircraft.
That could have got every one of them. Other times you don't even get out of the helicopter. I mean, you land in a hot LZ and all the windows there, everything's peppering. And but some patrols were early day where they just walked out and it was out and back in a day.
Uh-oh, somebody's trying to reach Rabbi.
So
that's that's wild, and folks, and that's what we're trying to get across to people. They kind of cut the Rangers, Force Recon, both and battalion, kind of short. Like, well, they never crossed the border, and it was tougher over there. Well, yeah, of course it was, but in case y'all didn't realize, by 68 they had over 100 and something thousand NVA ready to fight that were training what was left of the VC. So the guys in country had their hands full more than enough. I mean, that's the reason SOG was able to cross the border, because teams like Force Recon were doing deep penetration in enemy territory in South Vietnam, to where SOG could cross the border and try and disrupt. So we're trying to get that point across, that you boys were in the shit all the time.
Yeah, and we would do, Pathfinder missions were pretty much gone, but we did, occasionally. I mean, we were working anywhere from the beach to the borders. I mean, some people will tell you they crossed the border, and uh,
I
but
believe them. I
uh,
believe them. A few I've spoke to it said they've accidentally, and I believe them.
but we work with the grunts a lot. I mean, with grunt operations, and we're privy to this stuff, and we would go in before the grunts, and sometimes we would come in a couple mountains over, slip in, OP, and when they do their sweep, they're pushing bad guys, and we're directing chaos.
Yeah. Y'all's
And we,
Pathfinder work, I think, is a section of Force Recon work and Battalion Recon work that gets completely overlooked, in my opinion.
oh yeah, I mean, in Ray Stubbe's book, Inside Force
Inside
Recon,
Force.
one of my teams, we're in that we went in, and we came and snuck up to the LZ, and before a good guy, grunt type unit was coming in, we got there and observed the bad guys somehow must have been my wife.
It's fine. If you need to take it, you can take it while we're on, sir. Don't worry about that.
Hello. Yeah.
Did you find a package?
It's all right, guys. Don't worry. This is stuff we deal with. We're capturing history, and we've got to work around the vet, so it's no issue whatsoever. I'll show y'all Ray Stubbe's book so y'all can catch it. Hang on. These two books, y'all ask about good books, and if y'all are wanting some good history books on Recon, Marine Recon, Stingray by Doc Norton. But that was the book Mr. Rick is mentioned in this. This is by a Navy chaplain, Mr. Ray Stubbe, and it is a wonderful book. It's not very thick, but it's full of information. And this book is wonderful as well. Green Ghost, another outstanding one. But I was just wasting time. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Delivery. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, that was an excellent tidbit there, and I need to link these books into the show notes since people are going to be asking about books. Okay, we've still got some good ones here from the viewers. And in fact, if we keep staying, and we may just do the viewers and end up on that. But I do have one that I think is a good one for you here off this. Jason is curious. Did you ever see any Chicom DH-10 directional mines? From what I understand, it was like a claymore that looked like a gong, almost like a satellite dish. Those things look gnarly.
I don't think so. I mean, typical Chicom grenades, that kind of stuff, but I've not seen.
Oh, I mean the directional mine. I'm sorry, sir. I read it wrong. The mine.
No. Lots of Bounce and Betty type stuff, but I don't recall that one.
Okay.
I don't know the DH-10 name.
Let me see if I've got this saved right here, and I'll at least give you a picture. Chinese mine. And of course, I posted one not a week ago, and it's not going to pop up for me. So apologize about that, guys. I actually had a great picture of a China. Oh, there it is. Way, thank goodness I didn't stop looking. There you go. Moral of the story: don't give up after 2 scrolls. Right here.
No, can't say I saw that.
Evidently, later in the war, they became more prevalent. The SOG guys, I guess, in Laos they were more prevalent, but we've got a man, Mr. Greg Walker, who we've had on 7th group, and he was down in Nicaragua and El Salvador, and he said those were the preliminary for the IEDs that saw in Iraq and everything. That actually NVA instructors went down to train the FMLN guerrillas. So pretty interesting historical fact tying all that together. But glad you didn't come across those, because some of the guys said they'd wipe out an entire team.
Yeah, I knew they had stuff like our Claymore, but I'll tell you one that I did see when I was running point one time was a Malayan whip. And,
a Malayan whip?
Yeah.
Never heard.
Yeah.
What's it like? What's it like out there?
Well, you saw it in the John Wayne movie where the one guy got killed. It's it could be a tree limb with spikes on it, that kind of a thing. And it was tied. The tree limb is tied back, and you got like punji sticks on it.
Oh.
And so if you trip it, it'll come. And in his movie, it actually caught some guy
and put him against the tree. That one.
Well, it stuck him. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I didn't get stuck. We found
so
that. And then
you actually saw that on point one day.
Yeah, and then we tripped it
just to make sure it got tripped and another team didn't hit it on their way through if they came through.
That's correct.
Holy cow! Good God Almighty!
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times you found a lot of you'd find booby traps, and a lot of times you could just mark them in locations. You couldn't go blowing them all up or everybody know where you are. Mm-hmm. And it's not like your IED people or bomb explosion people. I mean, because people blow themselves up playing with booby traps. In '68, one of our guys loved to play with booby traps, and in a harbor site one night went out, set one. When he went back out to get it, set it off. Not good.
Wow, that is some gnarly stuff. That someone brought it up the other day about the ingenuity of the VC and the NVA, that people not given enough credit. I mean, these guys were good in the bush. They were ingenious, and for them to be fighting the likes of Mr. Rick in 1st and 3rd Force and the SOG guys, these guys were good. They weren't just peasants running around with single shot bolt action rifles. They were in it for the long haul.
Yeah, as the years passed, the bad guys evolved, and they did come up with hunter killer teams that tried to operate like we did, and tried to find us all the time.
That's our next question. Did Force Recon teams ever hit any NVA counter recon teams?
You'd have to say without doubt. Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, y'all and guys also forget, and I've got it. I haven't transferred it to this computer, and I apologize. But y'all, Force Recon had, and I think battalion. I know Force did. Y'all had bounties on your heads as well. I mean.
Yeah, there's different literature with that, and the numbers that they threw around would be, much money as one of them guys made in a year or whatever, too.
10, 20. I've got a poster that Doc Connor sent. I think it was 10 or 20,000 piastres, or I forgot what.
The one poster, I sent that around, and I think it was 10,000. And I had a friend of mine that pretty fluent in Vietnamese, and the different dialects are hard. And he looked at that thing and he said it seems like it was done by one of the bad guys up in a cave somewhere. And don't know. I'd take his word for it. And but there were the bounty type things out there, stories of those things.
Them trying to pull their own little psychological work on y'all like y'all were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to get bagged and
No.
find out that I was worth like $3.
Yeah, yeah. What an insult. What an absolute insult.
Yeah.
This is a good one. I don't think this has been asked before. As a matter of fact, I'll be reading that and the Men on Saipan. I forgot the name of that book. That's good. But any memorable old breed style Marine veterans, WW2 Korea among the ranks during your time in Vietnam?
Surprisingly, there were World War II guys and Korean guys.
Definitely Korea.
And I think, I'm not sure. I think, oh, well, Doc wrote a book about, did you read Sergeant Major with Sergeant Major Jax?
Yes, sir.
I think Jax was in Korea. I think he joined in like 51 or 47 or something.
Was that the one renamed from I'm Alive? Or is that a different one? Because there's two Marines that Doc has written a book about that were war veterans.
Yeah, Sergeant Major is Jax.
Okay.
And the other one is oh shoot, don't tell me I forgot his name. He lost his leg, the lower part of his leg.
One tough Marine.
Yeah.
Gunny Hamlin.
Hamlin.
Yeah. That's a good book, and I've got it right back there as well. And I'm trying to think of the men who we were just talking about right there that he wrote about. And I forgot. It's Lynn something. I forgot it, but I was gonna buy it. He WW2 Korea got captured in both wars. WW2 and Korea went to a Chinese prison camp, escaped, went to Vietnam, fought, and ended up living, and after Vietnam was like, I've seen too much and done enough, and I'm hanging up the guns. 3 wars is more than enough for this guy. We always enjoy hearing about the older guys that were, if there were any around you young pups, if you will, when you were first getting in. Jason is doing great with the questions. By the way, Al, that was a great question that you asked right there. For all the new viewers, could you explain what dual cool means and how many Marines that were with you were dual cool qualified?
Oh, wow. Quite a few. Dual cool, it just, you're jump qualified and you're dive qualified. Mm-hmm. That's where the dual came from. And again, guys that were fortunate to be trained stateside, a lot of them were both coming into country. A lot of guys we had jump school. The Army had a jump school in Okinawa. Mm-hmm. So we would get quotas so we could get guys to go to jump school. And down at Subic, we could get quotas to go down to the ship's repair facility run by the Navy to go to dive school. And a lot of guys got to go to one or the other. Sometimes to entice you to extend, that you could get to another one. But I mean, you would leave Vietnam. Guys that went to Okinawa might go for, a pre-jump in country, mm-hmm. and then 4 weeks in Okinawa. And for dive, it might be a week or two for pre-scuba, and then 4 weeks in the Philippines. And I went to the Philippines, and it was guys from 1st Force, 1st Recon Battalion, 3rd Force, 3rd Recon Battalion, and I remember not part of our class, but there were 1 or 2 SEALs down there diving, and it was run by Navy E6s, E7s, that kind of stuff. And oh yeah, it was great. It was great. So
That's
you get out and run in the bush for a few weeks, and yeah.
now Subic Bay is Subic, where's Subic Bay at? The
Philippines.
Philippines? Okay, that's what
Philippines.
I was thinking. And is that where Doc Norton and you were originally going to be in class together, and he ended up getting hurt on the dive? Or
Doc, he was with Third Force. It was right before they came down to us, and he was down there going to scuba school. And while he was there, somewhere he hooked up with somebody to jump.
Oh no!
So while he was still down there from scuba, he stayed and jumped. And then when he talks about that, he got injured. And once he came back from that, then he came to us. So
he got hurt on the jump.
yeah, he got hurt jumping. Somewhere in there. I mean, it's in one of the books, and when you talk to him, you can quiz him.
Yeah, that's what I'll ask and see.
But I went down there with Sergeant. Well, he was first sergeant. Well, Doc became First Sergeant Jack's dive buddy. They were partners in diving once they got together back with us.
Okay.
When we changed COs, we got a CO that wanted to be a jumper. And First Sergeant Jacks said, well, okay. He hooked us up, and Sergeant Major Jacks, our CO, Major Dorman, me, Staff Sergeant Martin, and a rigger named Dix, and one other guy. They got us quotas. We left Vietnam and went down to the Philippines and spent 5 days or 7 days just jumping 2-3 times a day with the Navy paramedics.
Wow.
And then went back to Vietnam, and our CO was all happy because now he was jump qualified. But yeah,
Holy cow!
we jumped out of a seaplane, some kind of seaplane, and had these little couple steps and a small door on the side.
Boy, that's a memorable one. I don't know how many people have ever jumped out of a seaplane before.
Yeah. Well, the Navy guys were doing it, the Navy paramedics.
That's cool. That's pretty neat. You getting hooked up with them and getting to get some that many jumps in like that. That's pretty cool. Wow, that's pretty neat. Did Jason's curious? Great questions today, Jason. Wonderful. Did Force Recon have any kind of exploitation force like SOG had hatchet forces to act on the information you all found in your reconnaissance in the field?
No, we didn't have like the hatchet or Mike forces. If we were out and encountered something, found stuff, and thought that it would lead to something, once we come back and debriefed, another team may go back out there, but it was team by team, and then different times grunts may be called in. So a grunt would actually take up that type of function.
That's what I was thinking. They're being the eyes and the ears, and y'all passing it down and working. That was a great question, and I've been curious about that too. The quick reaction type forces and everything. Let's see. Thank you, Mary Jo.
If we needed reaction forces, you can call grunts or teams that are in the rear. We would just scramble people in the rear from our teams if need be.
Wow. Okay. let's see here. I'm going to pick one. We're at 119, and that's about where we're going to cut off here. We've got one or two. Actually, I think this one will be long enough that we can cut it off after this, because I think this is an interesting one. Azure, this is from Twitter, from Jason Holmes at MACV-SOG Twitter page or X page. All of y'all should follow it if you don't. Azure Pufferfish wanted to know, could you explain to the civilian mind why you would volunteer for such hazardous and arduous service after already experiencing jungle combat in a regular unit?
You mean like if you were already
Weren't you with were you with 3-5 before you went at some point in time in country fighting?
No.
Or
no? I was always with First Force in the battalion.
okay, well, bump off already experiencing combat with a regular company. Just explain to us civilians what would make you volunteer for such hazardous and arduous service, knowing the what laid ahead.
I've known guys that were, and there's two scenarios. One is a guy that's in the grunts and has an opportunity to volunteer for recon. He may volunteer and get transferred. When one of the COs took over the battalion, he brought a bunch of guys from the grunts with him, and they weren't recon trained, but they did their, OJT, and they weren't new guys to firefights and stuff like that. But why they would do it? Life as a grunt would suck. Nothing wrong with being a grunt. We're all grunts. But their lifestyle wasn't conducive to compared to us. Yes, what we did was very hairy with a small amount of people. And that's the kind of training we had. And our mindset was, I didn't want to go out with a big group of people making lots of noise out in the open or doing whatever, so that the bad guys know where I am. I would rather be the unknown factor and be in their territory and they don't know I'm there. Okay, that's my thought pattern. But guys were trying to get out of the grunts, and they knew something about us, and they would like to do that because they had a different mindset. If you had guys that came into country and they came from recon in the States, the grunts would try and steal these, steal guys. Reason being, in the States, the recon guys were also more map skilled, compass ready. They were better at calling artillery, communication. So the grunts would try and steal them. The 5th Marines were pretty good at stealing guys. And it would take, 3 months to get them and get word to us and get him transferred from the grunts to us. So his mindset was, I'm already recon. I need to get with my guys. And it's a mindset. It's a mindset. I mean, the grunts would look at us, we're crazy, doing this stuff. And it's like, well, your mindset's no bargain because I don't want to do what you're doing. And, but either way you go, you love each other to death, and you would do what is necessary. Now, the lifestyle, there's a whole lot to be said, and same between us and SOG versus grunt units or infantry units. They may be stuck out on wherever, some fire base, some hill, 3 weeks, 3 months, wearing the same crappy uniforms. They're stuck into this limitation where, reading some of the SOG literature, they run, they come back, they got a week off. All right. They're in the back, they have
Showers.
letdown time, recoup, let the stress come out. Well, the stress never really leaves you. With us, you can come back and, typically first day back, you're cleaning all your gear and you may get the next day off. And you're just waiting for a new mission. Now, it could be anywhere from 3 days, and sometimes it might take a week, or depending on what all is going on, until you get that new operation order. So we had free time. We could come back, and like when I was at, say, Camp Reasoner, when we lived with the battalion, it was a mile and a half or 2 down to Freedom Hill. Well, Freedom Hill was where the big PX was and the beer garden, and we could come back, do our thing, hitchhike down there, or sometimes you could actually get a Jeep, and we would go, down the road past Charlie Med, 1st Med Battalion, and get to Freedom Hill. You drink beer, you get cheeseburgers, and mostly what you saw were, we're actually, the support guys. But occasionally you would see, and you could spot a grunt right away. I mean, they had, instead of black jungle boots, theirs were brown. They were skinned. I mean, which our bush boots were, but when you came back, you were squared away. Or we would get over to China Beach. Okay, we would take rubber boats to China Beach, practice landing, going back to sea, and they had cheeseburgers over there. They had round-eyed women. They had nurses there, and we got a picture. I don't know if I sent it to you, where we got a round-eye sitting up on Hawk's shoulder.
Yes,
and, things were good.
That day especially, that was a damn good day.
We even swiped metal racks and mattresses, a few of them over there. But our lifestyle, you go from extremely hairy to come back to where there's some semblance of life compared to a grunt. And a grunt can evaluate, would I like my lifestyle to change, my stress factor to change? But yeah, the mentality or the mindset of those that you're looking at that were grunts to try and come to us. You didn't see people going from us to the grunts unless they got fired. I mean,
yeah,
and it was rare. So, I mean, you took the good with the bad, and many, I want to say the majority, without a doubt, most of us made it through it, that kind of a thing. We didn't lose the people like as many as SOG did, for sure.
Oh, no. I mean, they had multiple teams literally disappear off the face of the earth. I mean,
yeah.
Love that photo. I just put that together. There's the Recon gold wings right there. And guys, if you notice how slick they are, they put a torch right here, but there's a set of wings right here to indicate they are Pathfinders as well. That's beautiful right there. I just put it together.
Yeah.
Wow. Great photo. All right. I believe we have I had one question I wanted to ask you about because we had not, I don't think I had ever seen this one. And I do have a picture of Mr. Bart Russell that I'd never seen that I got from you. Hope you don't mind. Actually, it's this one. I did not know that was Bart all this time.
That was Bart. Oh boy, that was somewhere right around the beginning of somewhere January '67. I want to say. What does that say on there? Oh, that's just a date.
Yeah, that's me typing. It says Bart Russell. Yep, just Bart Russell. Bart
was one of the first people that I got to see or meet when I got there, and of course Bart was he ended up with Andy and Killer Kane.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And but actually he was with Killer Kane was operational before when Andy and I got there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I only stayed about a week or so down with these guys, maybe not even that. And when I was going through RIP, I ended up going from the 5th platoon to the 1st.
RIP and RIP, correct, is Recon and Doctor.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, this is when you had Dogma, I believe. And I think this is when, weren't you on Dogma?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
At that point in time, this is 1st platoon. We were countersign and Dogma.
Okay, the setup teams. Okay.
Yeah. Up to about 2 weeks before this, or a week before this, I was countersigned, and that's when Captain Barnes and Sergeant Blankenship got blown up by Bouncing Betty.
Oh, geez.
The fellow right here in the center with the hat smiling is the lieutenant we got in replacement. That's Tom Williamson. And
is this you right here?
I'm sorry.
Is that you or Pee Wee?
That's me.
Okay. I was about to say I thought it looked like you with your neckerchief or cravat, whatever you've got on right there. I was wanting to make sure.
That's a piece of a camouflage parachute.
Oh, going back to the old Army airborne kind of.
I always had that, and I would use as a headband or around the neck. And this big guy here in the top left corner, that's Rocky Schmidt. Rocky's in the picture with Fred Vogel and the dive team. He's in the back left corner on Fred Vogel's picture.
Oh, okay. He's also in a photo you sent me of where he's got yes, sir, with his uniform all tore up.
Yeah, that's Rocky. He lives in Sweden.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. Wow. I was always curious about Dogma on being Hill 327, and now it makes sense. Dogma countersign. Yeah,
we were up practicing rappelling, doing the cliffs and stuff like that. And the black fella down here in the right left, he was dual cool.
Oh,
Finley Johnson.
Oh, that's Mr. Finley?
That's Finley.
Wow.
Sitting in between there's Mike Pistorino. That's Lieutenant Williamson. Yep, that's Pistorino.
Wow.
Williamson, that's me. This is Carl Chambliss.
I've heard that name before.
Rocky Schmidt, Ronnie Wallace, and Patrick. His name is Patrick.
Don't know him. I definitely have heard some of the other names, especially Mr. Finley, where he's literally wrestling, chest pressing Pee Wee in that photo.
Oh yeah, well, Finley, you can see him. He's pretty wide body. He's stout. He's one of the
Oh,
strongest people I ever knew.
oh, he
But
looks like he is a stud and a half to say the least.
when one time when we, and I think I told you, we got inserted into a swamp, and when Pistorino and I jumped out, it was like above our waist, and Mike was running point, I was back up, and I couldn't move, and I was stuck in this swamp, this bad guy started shooting at us from the hill, and I'm thinking I'm gonna get shot in this damn swamp, and Mike was struggling to make it through. Well, all of a sudden I felt something grab me by the harness, by my ranger straps, and it was Finley, and he drug me through like a road grader through this swamp till we got to where it was low enough I could move. But I mean, I had like 80 pounds of stuff on me, and I only weighed about 120, and oh yeah, it was crazy.
Not to mention his combat load he's carrying,
and he was a radio guy too, so he had the radio, and the Gooner kept shooting at us. We made it to the side, and we made calm with the birds, and Finley, as big as he is, he was trying to hide behind like a 3-inch tree. He was sticking out on both ends, and damn bad guy, I'm figuring he must be cross-eyed because he ain't hitting nobody. And all of a sudden, Finley jumps up and he starts slapping at himself, and it turns out that the tree he was at was covered in big black ants, and they were all over him. They were biting him. At that point, the lieutenant looked at us. I looked at Pistorino, gave him a let's go, and me and Mike started taking off out the back wind. I kind of looked at Finley and kind of just waved at him and said, "Yeah, see, we're leaving." And we went off, and then we bagged a bunch of Gooners later on that patrol. But
Wait, in your opinion, because I've heard Platoon got it wrong when they talk about the ants, were the black ants the worst or the red ants? Or they're all bad?
You always think red.
Mm-hmm.
And we were hiding, and we were somewhat surrounded. We were waiting for an extract. And we were all huddled, laying down, prone. Rocky Schmidt, for a couple of hours, was watching a black ant and a red ant fight. And we thought we were going to find out who's the toughest. And we got the word that the choppers were coming. And Dan Bowser came over. He got up and he came over and he squashed the two ants, and we never found out who won. I always think of the red being the worst, but Finley would tell you black. So,
I bet so. Me and you probably have that preconceived notion of red being bad because we got these dadgum fire ants down here that'll kill you if you don't watch out, if you get in the bed of them.
Oh yeah.
We'll close out. James, sadly, he's from Scotland and he's joining us late. James, please watch this. Mr. Rick had some great information today, and tomorrow we'll have a good one maybe you can catch. But we'll close out. James is curious. Mr. Rick, did you ever meet a Marine Corps medic at Dong Ha between 67 and 68 named Ed Henry?
I did not. But okay. I just saw his name popped up on something when I was doing something with some of the 3rd Force guys.
I've seen that name as well in some of the groups. So, James, if you've got information or you're looking for information, let us know, because some people in the groups that me and Mr. Rick got me a part of have brought him up before. So,
yeah, Lou Kern was in that time period. Lou would probably be a good one.
That'll give me another excuse besides needing to check in with him for a show to reach out and touch base with him to have him on. So, Did you have anything else you would like to say or close out with, since we've had you well over the time you allotted for us?
I'm good. I'll just look forward to a little rap session next time.
All right, and as I said, like I said, Jason's got all of our questions ready, so I'm going to spend the next probably the next week getting them ready, because next week will be a slow week. Thank goodness, it's been a wild one this week. And maybe around the time we have Lou and Doc on, we can have all three of y'all kind of back to back and everything. So
All right.
I'll stay in touch with you, and we'll go from there. James, we're gonna work on the 1st of August having the Cobra pilots back on. Ed Henry went back, runs a tour for vets to go back to Vietnam. Okay, that'll help out for information. But other than that, Mr. Rick, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, we'll stay in touch and get you back for this great thread of questions we've got for both SOG and Force Recon. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll be in touch.
All righty. Thanks. Pleasure.
Yes, sir.